Prime Minister has mounted a defense of his government and, in particular, Procurement Minister Anita Anand in the face of harsh criticism over vaccine volume. During a virtual Liberal fundraiser last night, Justin Trudeau called out Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who earlier in the week said the lack of supply from the federal government was a joke. Trudeau says they've actually delivered more vaccine than promised.
I said, no, Doug, you can count on that. We're going to get, because Anita has told me we will get those 6 million doses of vaccines. Well, I guess to a certain point, he might have a point that we didn't get 6 million doses by the end of March. We are, as Anita said, going to have about 9.5 million doses by the end of this week.
With me now is CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Hi there, Tom.
Good morning, Marcia.
Okay, so it was just yesterday that they made the big announcement, all levels of government in Ontario, about this new biomanufacturing plant, and everybody was getting along. And now we have this back and forth between the Ontario Premier and Doug Ford. Of course, the Premier of Ontario taking a lot of heat right now for the upcoming shutdown. So what do you make of the back and forth between Ford and Trudeau and the finger pointing from the Premier?
Well, that's the right expression, Marcia. That's what it is. And I don't think that the average Canadian or the average Ontario citizen right now is looking for that sort of finger pointing or that sort of tit for tat between levels of government. This is a race against the clock. Mr. Trudeau is delivering to Canada the doses that were promised. Even better announcements came this week with regard to more Pfizer vaccine. And things are moving along. Now, it's not Mr. Trudeau's fault that Ontario has had a lot of problems with its vaccination registration portals. That's something that's on Mr. Ford's agenda that he should have gotten to because he had months and months to prepare for it. I'll give you an example, Marcia. Despite the fact that Quebec's overall record has been, frankly, abysmal, right now, anybody in the Ottawa area who has a cottage on the Quebec side is going over to register themselves as living at that cottage so they can go and get their shot on the Quebec side. I'm not saying that Ontario's gotten everything wrong, but there are some things that the federal government is to be answerable for. But Doug Ford is delivering a line of the Conservative Party. And I do think that the average person is capable of distinguishing partisan politics from public health. And all people want right now is for all levels of government to concentrate on public health.
Yeah, and I sound cynical even asking this question, but does it show that we really are all in this together?
It does, because it's classic Canadian, blaming different levels of government. And of course, Mr. Trudeau is, to the extent that he can, trying to see if he can clear things up enough to launch into a federal general election, let's say by the end of June, would I believe be their preferred date. If not, they're going to have to wait till the fall. So that's all playing into this. Mr. Ford's reaction is an overreaction. He's overplaying his hand, but he's doing that for and on behalf of his Conservative allies. At this stage of the game, it is a race against time. We know that we have enough doses. We've got to get them into people's arms, and that will help the mass immunity, what they sometimes call the herd immunity. And here in Quebec, we're shutting down 3 major cities. We have had to shut down Quebec City, Gatineau, and Lévis, altogether close to 1 million people, because things are out of control. Just in Quebec City, to give you an idea, I say there was one gym. They decided out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago to start opening up gyms again. Guess what? There was one gym where there were 68 people who got COVID-19. And then, of course, it immediately spread to their workplaces. And that's how this thing has just been snowballing out of control in the Quebec City area, which had largely escaped the first wave. So we know that we've got enough doses. We got to get them into people's arms. This is the third wave. And it literally is that. It's a race against time in the areas of Canada across the country where we've had the worst. I think that Doug Ford is making a mistake. As a political analyst, I'll say that. I think he's making a mistake picking this fight now with Prime Minister Trudeau, because I think Mr. Trudeau is going to win this fight.
The hard fact, though, is, Tom, Canada is still lagging behind dozens of other countries in vaccinations.
That's right. And it's lamentable. And as I say, there's a lot of blame to go around. And Mr. Ford is trying to circle that, talking about 55th in the world. I'm not sure that still holds water. And I'm quite convinced it won't hold water by the end of this month, April, because we'll have tens of millions of doses that will have arrived in Canada by then. And if you look at what's happening in Europe, where the European Union, the 30 plus countries, they all have to work together and they're trying to figure out exactly the best way to do this. Well, there are countries that are way short. And look at the almost total shutdown of the largest country in area and one of the largest in terms of population, which is France right now.
So third lockdown. Yeah.
We can lament the fact that we didn't get as many in as fast as we should have. And there were definitely mistakes, probably in the drafting of those contracts. That's why Mr. Trudeau and Minister Anand have fought tooth and nail to stop those contracts from being made public, because it would be a goldmine for the opposition parties, no doubt. They've been rewriting them, renegotiating them. But now, within a few weeks of having enough immunity in the population, within a few weeks of beating back this third wave, I just get the sense, based on my experience in politics and in government, that there are a lot of Canadians who are just saying, look, let's move on. Let's just get this job done. And that's all anybody wants right now.
Tom Mulcair, we're going to leave it there for this Thursday morning. Great to see you. Great talking with you as always.
Great to talk to you again, Marcia.